It's full screen for me.
Full screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today in front of you to share the little that I knowledge that I have, which I would want you also to benefit from it. So, how to build the dream team? As we progress through this whole session, I would want it to be interactive. If you have any questions, you can either put it on the chat, or when I'm asking questions, unmute yourself and just give some answers, because I'd like to know different perspectives of people. So the topic, building the dream team, it may seem daunting to most people, and it is an ideal case. Those of you who've been in the corporate, who have been part of different companies, you might have had this challenge, the challenge of working with people. So you're not really sure if the problem is with you or with your team. So how do you begin? How do you first start with building a team? What are the aspects that go into getting people together and making sure that they work like a well-oiled machine? So first, you need to get your basics right. From my past experience as taking up leadership roles, be it in the Leo Club, be it as an area director, president, or several other roles that I've taken up in Toastmasters as well as Lions Club, which is a voluntary organization, I've realized there is one thing which is critical for effective leadership: communication. So what is communication? If I could get two or three answers, you can just unmute yourself and tell me, what do you think communication is? This is with respect to leadership. What do you feel communication is?
To
I think it is
express oneself.
communicating to the people in need, right? That we want you guys. So how to convey that message?
Okay, how to
That
convey a
we
message?
need people. That we
Okay,
need
thank
team.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Mahmuda, you were saying something?
Yeah, to express one's ideas and views.
Okay, to express one's ideas and views.
Yeah.
What else?
Communication is a simple the act of transforming information to one place or person to another person or place.
Absolutely. So I think Kavita has given the closest answer that I was looking for. But you others also did mention one critical aspect of what communication is. If I have to put it in a nutshell, I would tell you that communication is passing information from your head to another person's head. The medium that you use could be several. Either use technology, use newspapers, use phones, use verbal communication, written, so many other means. But if you think of it in a nutshell, it all comes under this. It's one person or a group of people passing on an idea from their head to other head. So most of the people in the current society and in the work environment, they have some form or the
बारिश
other.
बहुत आ रही है पुणे में, बारामती में.
There's somebody that is speaking in the background. If you can mute. Yes. So in the workforce environment, communication is what is lacking. And because of this, you might realize that in a team, there are several things that happen. So moving on to the next one. What are some of the common issues that you would face if you have a team? Let us say you've put together a group that's working for a project, or you have friends that are planning a Goa trip. You have one person. What are the main issues that come forward in a team, which makes it difficult as a manager? You can unmute and answer.
So I just like to share that everybody has different opinions. So it's very difficult for a group sometimes to kind of agree to or probably come to a consensus on what they have to do, whether it is a project or whether it is going to Goa. Like how do they travel? Where do they stay? So they have different views, and it's very difficult for them to come to one opinion or to kind of come to a consensus. So that's what I think.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. So what Cheryl said is different opinions, different views on certain ideas. So it's difficult to put it all together and come to one agreement or a consensus. Okay. Anybody else? Have you ever tried to put people together to help you, even as simple as putting a party together? Or even if you're planning something with your family, you want to go on a day outing. If you are even 6 to 7 people, what are the struggles that you face in organizing it?
Hi, this is Chetan here.
Yes, Chetan.
Yeah, the most common problem with the working with the team is the view, the opinion, the ideas of a different people, get them align what we want to do. Like example, you said Goa. For me, if I want to go Goa, I have a different perspective. If I have you as a come to person as a go to Goa, you have a different perspective. If I talk about Shrikant, he has a different perspective to go to Goa. So different ideas, different visions. That is very difficult, and that is one aspect I say.
Okay, okay. Thank you,
Um,
Chetan.
I
So
have
we
a lot.
come.
I
Yes,
have another point to share
yes,
based on the
Chetan.
same thing. So I have seen through my experience working in different companies is sometimes the experience that they have. So if there's a senior or if there's a newcomer, so sometimes that experience probably gets to their head. So they feel that only the experienced ones, can make the decisions, and the one who have just joined can't have that decision making power. So I guess, yeah, experience does kind of cause some issues in a team. Maybe ego and attitude for some people, not everybody, but yeah, ego, attitude, like I'm the best, I've been here for 30 years, in the company. So those kind of things do kind of come in the way of actually coming to a decision or, coming to the what is really required. So that's what I feel. So I would say ego, attitude, and the number of years of experience that they have could cause some issues as well. That's it.
Absolutely. Cheryl, you are exactly right when you say this. There are multiple people because, yes, they might have slogged over the years and reached a position where they are now at, and they would deem to say that it's because I've worked through this, I know, and I'm the best. So they are restricting their learning. They are in their nutshell. They feel there is a halo over their head. So whatever they say is right and is the Bible truth. This, as a leader, is very dangerous because your team, nobody likes somebody who doesn't appreciate opinions. So I will touch a little more about this a little later in the coming slides, but here are some of the common things that I noticed when I had put a team together. Now you have a team which has a common focus, but then you realize there are people in between that don't even feel like doing anything. I can give you examples right from my college days where we had a project. Even though the project was for marks and you had to do it in order to get your degree, there were people who did not bother. They weren't motivated, they were lazy, and the rest of the group had to actually suffer and make up for it. Another that you had mentioned earlier, bickering over issues. Now, when you have difference in ideas and opinions, arriving to a consensus is very, very challenging. Whom do you support? So there is this imbalance of power that takes place, and everybody wants to be the center of the whole universe. That is what makes it difficult. Favoritism. In certain corporates, they say that you have this chapchagiri taking place, you have people trying to please the boss. This is because the issue is with the boss, it's not with the people around. The boss likes the attention, likes the importance that is given. That is why favoritism comes into picture, and it's not justice, in my opinion, as compared to working in a whole team. This in turn causes high attrition. Attrition is a problem with uh, groups or departments where this issue takes place, and also miscommunication. Some examples that I can give with miscommunication or excuses. When there is an issue, people say, "I thought that this person had told me you cannot do that or you can do that." Oh, I thought you already knew. Oh, I misunderstood something in the mail. Why is it do they always say, get it in written, get it either on WhatsApp, either on email, get it in written? Because when somebody says something verbally, it doesn't act as evidence. You always need something written because of miscommunication. So these issues primarily take place because of these broad reasons or factors, if I could put it. Now, as babies, when we are born, this is something biological. Speaking in front of an audience, speaking in front of others, actually puts you in a position of defense. By defense, what I mean to say is, in the earlier time, as man evolved, we had three responses whenever there would be danger that's coming ahead. So first would be the freeze. Then you had fight or flight. Fight would be to tackle the threat that is coming across, and flight would be running away from it. So as humans, you wouldn't see any animal that is standing in front of the others and actually speaking or roaring or making their noise. It's only with humans that this takes place, and standing in front of an audience actually triggers the limbic response, which is either fight or flight. That is why you have the similarities. Let us say you see an animal that is coming and it scares you. What are the factors or symptoms that you feel in your body? You have palpitations, you start sweating, your heart races, you cannot speak properly, you start stammering or shivering. Doesn't this also happen when you are in front of an audience? So very similarly, even in a team, if the team is even as small as 3 people, this comes into picture. If you tell new college graduates, people who just graduated, they are fantastic at their technical skills, but when it comes to speaking in front of their team, they do not have this basic communication. So the first point that I said, no social skills, it's because as humans, we aren't meant to go out and speak. We groom ourselves to do it. As similar to swimming, as children, we don't get swimming as a hardwired technique like most animals would. Humans need to learn. Similarly, even for being social in terms of addressing people, you need to learn the skill of putting your message across, understanding approaches, understanding sentiments. That is what I mean by these introverts, the shyness that takes place, half communication, understanding who has ego and how to massage the ego. These are the skills that you get or you need when you have to manage a team. Another aspect is poor process. When you have your people with you, if there is no protocol or process of what is to be done for different cases, the team will be confused. They will not know what to do. An example that I can give is, if you know that there is an emergency, somebody at your house is facing a medical emergency, what do? You know you have to call the ambulance. Very similarly, even in this case, for a process, people are confused. They don't know what to do, how to move forward. So I will tell you about the processes a little later. And finally, need mismatch. If you speak to most of the graduates that now come out of college, if you ask them what do they want to do next, they will say, I want a job. They aren't clear what is the job that actually makes them happy, or what is it that they want to do, what is it that they like doing, what are the jobs that actually match their skill set. They say, I want job, or I want a job that will give me a good salary. People don't understand that to get a good salary in return, you have to offer your high valued skills back in return. It is all an exchange. So here, if there's a mismatch, you're practically forced to do something that you don't like. So how do you begin? How do you put your team together? First, as a leader, as a person who is driving the whole initiative, you need to be clear of what is the outcome that you would want to achieve at the end. Start out by planning the whole goal of where do you want to reach, and then you backtrack it. You reverse engineer what are the resources you to get there. So there are many examples that I could give you. It could be organizing an event. For example, let's say you want to put a wedding together. You know that it should be a great show, but you should be clear how great do you want it to be. Do you want to invite 2,000 people, 3,000 people, or just 50 people? So you can't have a confusion that I want 2,000 people in mind, but my budget is only for 50 people. So if you have your goals clear, you can backtrack, and then you can even develop as to what are the resources you require. You'll know how much food is needed, how many tables you require, how big the venue should be, what are the takeaways that you can give. So these are several elements. So have your goals clear. After that, you would need to identify what are the skills you require in your whole team in order to achieve that goal. If I am starting, let's say, a food outlet, I know for sure that first I would need to set my kitchen. First, I would need to have a person who is good at cooking, who knows the recipe. I need to arrange my raw material, somebody who's supplying my raw material. This comes as the operations perspective. Now, how do people know about my food outlet? They would need good marketing. You have to create content. You have to even create offers. You need someone in sales. So these are the skills that you can put together when you think what are the skills that you need. So this is how you backtrack. And finally, recruiting or putting in members that suit that skill set. It might seem very simple. It might seem like common sense that this is nothing special. Why is Clyde telling me this? But believe me, if you go to any of the corporates, you talk to managers, you talk to the team, there is a huge mismatch of skill set. There are engineers working in banks. There are people of commerce background that are running businesses of their own without no prior training. So what happens is there is a huge difference in what a person knows and what is actually needed. But if you fit both together, you have a very good system in place. So once you have all these people in place, now you need to find out if they really fit the position. So during the interview, this is again a flaw that I have observed at most places. The HRs of companies, they are the ones hiring for technical positions. I've seen people that are hiring for sales positions, but they have no idea of what sales is. They do not know how to actually gauge whether the person on the other side of the table is good at sales or no. So the interview is very important. If this element is not done properly, you will have a complete mismatch. The person will not be motivated. They will not do what you say because they have no need for it. They might eat just for the money and nothing else. And believe me, in most cases, the budget isn't enough to motivate them to do work. You need other elements, a good balance of the amount of compensation they're getting as well as the satisfaction or the learning that they receive. So during the interview, you need to find out what is in it for the person. Why should he or she join your team? What is it that drives them? That is how you understand leverage. How do you leverage a person to work in your favor? And other observation that I've seen, and as Cheryl had mentioned a little earlier, that you need everybody likes to give their opinions. Everybody feels that their opinion is the right one. Now, as a leader, you need to understand that you have to respect that, but you need to also balance or put the approach in the right manner. So the feedback process that I would want to talk about here is decision making. Now there's a story about a manufacturing process line. So it seems that the ones on the shop floor, they are the ones that actually have the most knowledge in running the machinery and other stuff. But you would have the supervisor and the ones above who never even step foot on the shop floor, and they are the ones giving commands saying that no, production should increase, this should be done, this is the best way to do it. But actually, if you go and ask the linemen on how we could improve, they would have the best of suggestions. So by a feedback process, a leader must always be receptive to ideas from the ones under him. As it was mentioned a little earlier, yes, there are people who say, no, I've worked for 25, 30 years, I know the best, I have done this. But times are changing. Ideas can always keep growing and developing. So a feedback process is being receptive to these ideas. Not always these ideas are the best way forward, but the more you accept and appreciate ideas, the happier that your people would be, the ones in your team. So decision making actually puts a person on a pedestal. So they have a sense of being in power. And this is what people love. So if the lineman, that the story that I was telling you about, he had a certain idea saying that there's a more efficient way to running a process. So as the company's whole policies had changed, they had put it in a way that up till a certain level, people were allowed to experiment. If at all there's not a lot of loss of time that goes with it, people can experiment and then see where things go. This sort of freedom is the new culture. If you look at big companies like Google and you have Amazon, you have Microsoft, the work culture is quite different from most of the corporates you would have in India. They give them the freedom to decide when they want to work. What is put on the table is just the task that they want to do. This makes them feel accountable and responsible. It's not just a 9 to 5 that they're waiting to put their thumbprint on at the end of the day, but they are actually motivated to complete the work in the fastest way possible. Now, by running the machine, what I mean is your team is in place. How do you ensure that the work happens? So the first point would be delegation based on capability. During the interview, you have understood what are the leverage points. Why is the person applying for the job? Is it for the money? Is it for learning? Is it for experience? Is it for the challenging environment? Is it because they like people? Is it because they enjoy the experience that you get working in that certain profile. So based on that, you can use it to your advantage and then delegate work accordingly. Balance of power is again with regard to the egos and the opinions. There are many cases where a meeting takes place just for the heck of the meeting to take place. People come in, they listen to the boss, nod their heads, and finally, whatever the boss says is what happens. So, here in this case, as a person, a manager, a head of department, you need to respect everybody's opinions, be it right or wrong, treat it logically, emotionally. When you treat it emotionally, saying that how can you give a better idea than me, that is when people get offended, and that is where the problem actually begins. So by balance of power, everybody's opinions are given the same importance, and the ultimate consensus arrives after logical evaluation of each of the opinions. And finally, ego management. Now you might have people who cannot bear to hear no for an answer. So in this case, you will need to know how to approach or give them feedback. One trick that I have learned in the past, when you work with volunteers, when you work with people you have almost no leverage over, people love to be praised. And if you have read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, there is one statement which he says that praise someone in public but criticize them in private. Nobody likes to be criticized in public. If you are in a meeting room and you are actually blaming somebody, that is because you did this, that is why we are facing such losses today. It's because your fault, your mistake, that we are in such a bad position. That will demotivate the person even further. But treat it differently. What if you have told the person in private, saying that, boss, see, this is what happened, this is what took place. If you had done it like this, you would have been in a better position. It doesn't hurt anybody. And the lesser you humiliate the person, the happier and more respect he will give to you. Secondly, if you recognize a person for their efforts, you encourage them and tell it in front of an audience, they will be elated. They will be on top of the world and would be even more motivated to do it. This is how you use emotions to drive them to do work. You need to massage their egos, make them happy, make their efforts feel like it has been respected and encouraged. Then they will work in your favor and will be very open with you. Now it comes to conflicts. There are many situations where this conflict of opinion takes place, and you as the boss will be in a tight situation because ultimately it is either this or that. There's no in between. There are many times that you will be approached at the last stage when the heated discussion is taking place and not after at the start of the fire. So at that point, what do? There will be a lot of blaming that takes place, saying that this is the person who started it, that is the person who began and did this. I hate this, and it reaches such a situation that people with low emotional intelligence, they will just burst, they will pop, and then the outcome is tragic. They take decisions without thinking. So one of the solutions here is by applying critical listening. Understand the picture from both sides. Now, to protect your own ego and image, people do tend to lie. People tend to make stories. People will make excuses, and they'll make it so much so that they want themselves to be appreciated. So here a solution for conflict would be understand both sides of the story,
doing a little bit of homework in the background, and then treating each of the situations logically. Now, an example that I can give you was when there was a certain club that we were trying to start as part of Toastmasters. And during that time, there was one person who is a senior member and who had his opinion saying, I know the stuff, I know the rules, I know everything. But on the other side, was a person who was just about 2 months into the program of learning public speaking. And she said, no, this person had done something wrong, and I know it, and I know consciously it is wrong. Now, me being in a position where I was above both of them, I had to decide either choose the person with experience who was of high value, or a person who is just into the organization and has a huge potential. It's either this or that. Well, it was quite a challenge, but then I realized that the person with experience was the one who was at fault. But how do you tell him that? This person who was just new into the system had given me even evidence saying that, see, this is what he says and this is what he does. So then I approached this person. I agreed to this person, the one who was new, saying that okay, this is what it is. I accept, and I think you are right here. Whereas this person, I had to take a different approach because he was more senior than me, but in a leadership position, he was just under me for that year. So the approach that I took was different. I told him, see, even when we are in these positions, there's guarantee that we won't make mistakes. There are mistakes that we would do. At times we might forget. So I told him, saying that, see, at times these people, the ones who are new, they have a higher tendency of making mistakes. So we could just let it go and see what happens. Because you, as an experienced person, you have all the knowledge, you have the skills that you've developed. So letting this one incident go won't cause a harm. So because I listened to both ends, this person, I actually had to praise his experiences, which is what convinced him, saying that yes, I will be the bigger man and I will let it go. Finally, the issue was solved. It was something that didn't cause any financial difficulty or chaos. So it was just a settlement that these two begin talking to each other. That was. So why is it that effective communication is important? What I've realized is that when you are a leader, when you are a manager or a head of a certain department, one thing you need to realize is that if you aren't a good communicator, you do not know how to get your message across, there will always be room for miscommunication, misunderstandings, and issues. So you yourself have to be clear in your head as to who is going to do what. So developing your communication skills, be it in the form of emails, be it in the form of motivating, inspiring, delegation. So there are several instances where when you are working on a project and you are given a task, if you haven't delegated properly to the right person or a certain person, it is assumed that somebody would do it. Was it me? Was it you? Was it him? Nobody is clear. That is also an aspect of miscommunication that takes place. So being very clear with your language, with your communication, either written or verbal, is very important when you are managing a team. So that is why they say you should have minutes every meeting. Why? Because what is communicated must reflect on the document.
If it does not reflect on the document, means you haven't passed your message across clearly and there's no call to action. So what do you do now? Let us say you're in a team. You have already formed a team and now you are struggling with it. I've given you the process so far of how to actually build the team and how to put it together. But if you're already in a team, what do you do? I would suggest that you talk to each member, understand why they are part of the team. Maybe it was not your call to put them in the team, but you need to understand what is in it for them and use that as your leverage for them to work towards your goals. Find a coach, somebody who is genuine, and a mentor. If there is somebody who has or is supposed to do marketing for your company or marketing for your team, find somebody who's good at marketing to mentor or coach this person. Then they will be able to do their best. You as a boss might not be the best person with all the skills available. So finding a good resource is what is very important here in this case. Be willing to fail and make mistakes. Now, there are instances where people say, no, I cannot make any mistake. I have all this experience. Why would I make any mistake when I'm doing this? I've been doing this all these years. So making mistakes is not wrong. That is how you learn. The bigger your mistake is, the stronger it gets stuck to your head in the long term. And also, as a boss, you need to never stop learning. Always be open to new ideas. And as a team, you are one. There was a quote that was mentioned here, even in the video of Trainers Network, saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. So everybody is equal and everybody's ideas and opinions must be respected and accepted. You give equal importance and then choose together which is the ultimate way to go. It should go with majority. Now there might be situations that how much ever you think of, how much ever you try, you've come to two steps and you need just one methodology or a solution to go ahead. So that is when you can choose majority wins. You can play the democracy game. You can always use the majority saying that let us try idea number one first for a couple of weeks or months. If it doesn't work, we'll try idea number two. Always be open to accepting both the ideas. That is when people are motivated to drive and actually implement what the decision has been made with the team. So with that, I come to the end of my session on how to build the team. And I hope it was useful and something that you could take back home today. If you have any questions, I'm open to it now.
Team, you can pose your questions right now, if at all you have any.
Yes, you can also type it in the chat and I can read it if you do not want to unmute. So as I was saying, in most cases, it's very difficult to come with these questions unless you've actually experienced things. So when you put yourself into the shoes, when you actually face these issues as a person leading a team, that is when you will have these problems that you want to put across and find solutions. There was one person when I had done this similar session, he asked me, what do you do when there is corruption?
Yeah, right question.
What do you do when there's corruption in your team and you don't know how to proceed? Because corruption is like a plague that is there in India in most of the organizations. So what I had answered to that person is, corruption comes when there is no integrity. Now, if you have a proper feedback system in place, so by feedback system, what I mean is that your people in the team should be open to reaching out to you whenever they feel any issues. Because later, you are the one who will be facing the bigger music, the bigger issues, if at all your person is caught. So if there is a sense of integrity, corruption, you would people who aren't earning enough. So because of the money issue, they feel that okay, if I accept this bribe, if I accept this, then I can provide a better living or life to my family. But having these people be aware of the ill effects, you can always make them aware of what is actually happening, what are the effects of this corruption, and then their consciousness will actually tell them, no, it's wrong. I see another question, how to handle conflict of interest between the team and the organization goal. Could you give me an example, Chetan? Chetan, are you around?
महमूदा, आपकी वॉइस क्लियर नहीं है. प्लीज अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ. महमूदा, प्लीज अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ.
Once again. Yeah. Chetan has to unmute because the question was to Chetan, so I was expecting him to answer. Chetan ji, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm sorry. There's a little bit problem. So, yes, the question I raised between it's how to handle conflict of interest between a team and organization.
Yes.
See, what you just said, whatever we run through so far, na, I've been to that chair because I've been to the corporate, I've been into the team player, a team leader, a manager, or something like that. So that is one part which always has a problem. So when I am a person who's a team member, and when I look at it as a team leader, that one task particular is, as you said, now we have to do a praising to the team member. So it says like somebody, I think like my leader is praising only the ex guy, maybe, or he is not giving us the sufficient attention, or he's not giving us the sufficient support. That is one aspect of team interest vis-a-vis corresponding with the organization. Now, if I say my KPI delivery says if I have to deliver this one X task by this end of this month, by this, and but my team is not able to do it, and there are things which I have to take a stern action about my team and the entire team. That is the conflict of interest. Whether should I go with the team or the organization? Because at the end, I have to look at the organization part as well.
Correct.
Because if the organization is not, targets are not met, I have not delivered. If I have not delivered, I failed it my somewhere. Now, there's other aspect of looking at is why I failed it, because I was not able to build the team intent.
Yes.
Conflict of interest in this scenario.
Yes. So, Chetan, from this aspect, what I understand is that the organization has given you a certain task with a deadline, but your team was not able to deliver to that deadline. Be it for many reasons. We don't know what it might be. So, there are two things that I could suggest here. The more you understand, or the closer you are with your team, you will know their capabilities. You will know that there are some people who are very prompt at what they do, but there are some people that you need constant pairing or reminding to do their task. So accordingly, it is your estimation of your team capability. If there's a certain project and let's say it takes 20 days to complete, but with the way that your team works, they are still developing. They aren't at the peak of their productivity. You can always consider a buffer. Tell your organization, I need 10 more days. Say that it is not possible with my team below 30 days. I require 30 days to complete the whole task. So here you've told your team that they have only 20 days, but your organization, you've told that you've actually bought 30 days. In this case, you are responsible to your organization to have it delivered by 30 days, but your team is under pressure to finish it in 20 days. That extra 10 days that you've got is so that you stick to the commitment you've given to the organization. So with time, you will make mistakes. There will be deadlines that are lapsed. This will give you an idea of what is the capability of your team. You should be in a position to assess it, and then you can translate it when you face the music with your management. And at all times, you stand for the team, you don't stand for yourself. Whatever happens, you have to support your team.
I got your gist about it. Okay, now I throw another ball into this scenario only. Is like delivering the KPI and KRAs. Okay, that's one aspect, as you said. Okay, but we are into the Indian market right now. Over though, even I'm surviving someone else, but Indian market is not a process driven. Okay, it's action driven. Okay, so my organization says this task has to be completed within next day, they will not give me any buffer time. So how do I deal with it?
So when you are facing your management, the person who's setting this deadline, if you are convinced that the deadline or the time frame is not enough, you can put a question saying that, please tell me how I can deliver. It's like saying I need to reach by train from the south of India to the north of India half a day. Practically it's not possible. But I'm telling you as a boss, no, you have to do it. Come what may. Get your train to fly or whatever. So that is when logic comes into picture. You need to actually tell your management, the person who is putting this target, saying that, please break it down, because as per my capability, I don't see that they are in a position that they can deliver such an extent. I will try my best. We will put our best efforts. But speaking from the current skill set, it looks very challenging. So you should stand for your team, because it is your team and you know them the best. If your boss or management is putting a target on you, ask them to break it down, saying that, no, it doesn't seem feasible to me. You could stand your ground. I hope I've answered it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, perfectly fine. Because see, this is what we think of large and picture is okay, fine. But as of now, what happens in the actual operation part, you also know you're working with the corporates, companies. See, they hire people, they will think of a X project, okay, and they would flow that information to the down the level that we are looking for this project, and these are the aspects. Now, the final decision making is still pending, whether we go live date, what are the things, and there are some aspects which is pending from the client side. So that takes a lot of time. By that time, my preparation, my team handling, and my crunching the entire stuff gets tossed. And once the date comes into hand, then everybody is into rush, get it delivered. So that creates a lot of different and conflict of interest for a management guy, a middle level management guy, to look into a team as well as the management.
Absolutely, Chetan. So this is why the points that I said should be followed from the bottom right to the top. Now, up to mid management, you are managing your team. But if your leader itself, the person above you, isn't receptive to feedback or isn't receptive to saying that no, this is too challenging and you're overcommitting, then it is an actual issue that has to be changed. So that these people must be out of the system. I mean, I know it's the ideal case that I'm putting here, but when you grow to the position, you will realize that how things can change. What happens with overcommitting? What is the pressure that you'll be putting on the people, subordinates under you?
Can I add something if it's okay with you,
Yes,
Clyde?
yes, sir.
Yeah, so Chetan, this is just what I think, okay? Because you are at the middle between the organization and your team, like Clyde said, maybe first buffer in that extra time. But as you know your team the best, I think what you can do is you can do a little bit of a check. So if let's say that the target is 10 days, okay, to be done. So after 2 days, just kind of get a heads up from them. What is the progress? Okay, so maybe after another 5 days, then get a heads up. So what happens is you are constantly communicating and aware of what is the progress being done rather than waiting to the last minute or close to the deadline. So you know your team best, and that's when you can kind of handle the timeline. And given the timeline, if you've got a buffer, like Clyde said, that's ideal to keep the buffer. Then I think you can, that buffer is still there with you. And let's say they are slightly overboard of 10 days, you still have that buffer of another 5 days. So you can kind of, handle it. So that's just where I kind of would like to sum up, say, keep a track of what they're doing in the most effective way, communicate with them, like Clyde said, and that's when I think you can stick to the timeline. So I just thought I could share that.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Cheryl.
you
That's
so
a
much,
good point
Cheryl.
that you put. Yes. And just to add to what Cheryl said, so Chetan, if you're interested, you can check out what are SMART goals and stretch goals. So these are concepts that you can look at and see how it improves with productivity. An example that I can give you here is if at all there's a presentation to be made. If you give a person 30 days to do it, or you give a person 3 days to do it, ultimately they would do it in the last 3 days. So you might as well give short timelines, but add that little buffer because you know they will not be able to deliver. So this is a strategy that has been implemented in corporates without the knowledge of the employees, but has been able to to do the work. Maybe your management also knows that you will not be able to deliver, but they've given it because they are expecting it 10 days later.
Yeah,
So
that's
these are
see,
actually
I totally agree. This is unsaid rule. If I get a delivery date of X, I will always give a X minus 10 to my team, and I will make sure that I
yes,
will deliver by X minus 10 because I have to meet my
correct.
X timeline at my hand. So that is unsaid rule to everybody. So
Yes,
that everybody is doing right now. That's what I said. In Indian market right now, what we
yes,
do is an action oriented, not a process oriented. Because my clients are also action oriented, my performance is also action oriented. Process driven is nothing as such, as of now in the current
yes,
market.
yes,
Yes, there are MNCs which are very through the point of two, okay, fine, they will go by the process. Like once you get the PO of project, by that there's a certain period that you go give me a case study, then you give me a progress and everything. That happens as per process. There are certain MNCs which do follow this criteria. But otherwise than that, you can also say that almost 10% MNCs follow this. Otherwise 90%, okay, once you got the ball, okay, so I'll start doing it.
yes.
Thank you so much, Chetanji. And I think if you have more doubts, you can get connected with Clyde so that you'll have more clarification on your questions. Thank you so much, Clyde. Uh, so I think Cheryl has a question. How do you handle favoritism? I think
Yes. So
you already
yeah.
answered that in your presentation.
Yes, but just to reiterate that
Just a briefing
as
about it alone.
yes, as a team member, it's very difficult to manage favoritism. But this was from the perspective of you being the boss or you being the leader of your team. favoritism is very detrimental to the egos of people, because they do realize that this person is being favored more, this person only will get the promotion. So when you respect everybody's opinion, that is when they will be transparent to you, they will be open to you, they will trust you with their ideas and thoughts. So when favoritism happens from the team member level, there are ways to actually get the boss to realize that it is not fair, by putting situations in place, by putting case A, case B, or person A, person B, but the task is the same. And finally, when you realize that one person is being favored over 2 or 3 instances, this can be brought to the boss. And this is with proof and everything. So this can come as a one-on-one, it can go as a friend, it can even be tackled as you going out with your boss for a drink somewhere. Everything opens up, and then they realize, yes, I've been doing wrong. That becomes a revelation, and things change for you in your corporate life. I know this is a long shot, but it is quite possible. I've seen cases where this happens.
That was a wonderful answer. Thank you so much, Clyde. You beautifully connected the dots, starting from communication and how appreciation, acknowledging them for their skills, all these things were connected beautifully. Thank you so much for giving a session on team building. And on behalf of...
Most welcome. It was my pleasure to have you all with us. I hope added some value to your time today.
Yeah, it's our pleasure as well having you on board. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Clyde. Once again, I would like to thank all the participants for being here to share and gain knowledge again. And I would like to extend my thanks to our admin team, Shrikant ji, Rahul ji, and Prashant ji once again. And friends, a humble request from my end. There is the link to join our chat group, WhatsApp group, in a chat box. Please do share it with your friends so that we can bring in more trainers to our community to benefit together. Thank you so much. So, Kavita?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we'll, I think we'll end the session.
Yes, yes, of course. And thank you, Clyde. There, definitely, it's a very wonderful session. And we think about the team building, and you told us very easily. So really, it's a fantastic session for us. And thank you, Mahmuda. Thank you, team 10.
Thank you, Badrinath.
All of
Thank you, Kavita, our core team, particularly,
yes,
for making this session a successful one.
Next time we will meet again.
Yeah.
The new session
Sunday.
with new trainer.
Yeah. See you all. Till then, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthier.
Bye.
Thank you.
सीमा बंद कर दे सीमा.
सर बंद कर दो.